Just kidding.
Oh. Do you want me to keep those for future years?
You can keep them. I don't have
Hey, bro, do you want to keep mine? I'm not keeping mine.
They go into the future years box. No, only keep the number ones.
Well, mine was 125.
Well, yours is number 2.
I like yours.
Okay. I'll keep it.
Checker, please.
All right, listen.
Come on, Bennett, you didn't even do it.
Yes, I did. I didn't want the
They first, you last.
Yeah.
Check out yours the same way
Didn't he say really? That's not
There
true.
is a box. They're in the box.
Okay.
He's gonna throw them away after class.
Stop talking. We ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're on page 9. Are you filming yet?
Yes.
Okay, we're on page 936. We're talking about the integumentary system. The word integument means covering. And so this is the system that covers things in your body. It's the system that covers your whole body, your skin. It's also the system that covers each individual organ. I don't know if you know this, but each individual organ has a layer of cells around it that covers it. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about the integumentary system. So let's talk about the skin first. The skin has 3 layers to it. The outer layer is called the epidermis. Underneath that is the dermis. Epi means above, so that makes sense. And then underneath that is the subcutaneous layer.
Does subcutaneous mean under?
Sub means under, cutaneous means skin. So it's under the skin.
So how deep would a cut have to be to get to that?
Pretty deep.
A stab wound?
Really deep. When you cut yourself and it bleeds, you cut through the epidermis into the dermis. The dermis has blood vessels. The epidermis does not. The epidermis is quite thin, probably about the width of a sheet of paper.
So when you get paper cut, that's why you don't bleed.
You can cut the epidermis without getting into the dermis. But if you cut into the dermis, it'll usually bleed because you'll cut one of these vessels. The dermis has a lot of vessels. Now, this picture shows a more detailed version. This is from the AP Biology book. And I wanted to talk about some of the things that are in the skin. First of all, the epidermis, these cells are constantly multiplying at the base of the epidermis. And as these cells multiply, color is deposited into the cells by other special cells called melanocytes. Melanocytes are special cells distributed within the epidermis that squirt color into your cells. Now, the more color they squirt in there, the darker your skin will be.
Melanin.
And it's in your genetics how much melanin to squirt into the cells. People who are black squirt a lot of melanin. The melanocytes are very active. People who are very white and pale, the melanocytes are very inactive. So, the darkness of your skin, and the melanocytes will change their activity depending on how much sunlight they get. If you lay out in the sun, it speeds up the activity of the melanocytes. And what happens is, as these cells multiply, the newer cells move this way and eventually make it all the way to the surface. So it takes several days, though, before you see the newest cells that get made. It takes many days to move to the surface. That's why when you lay out in the sun, you don't see the tan for many days, because those cells that get the melanin deposited in them take a long time to move up.
So what about when you get sunburn?
Sunburn is actual damage done by the sun to all these cells here. And it causes, whenever anything in your body gets damaged, it causes swelling and reddening, and that's part of the immune system reacting to the damage, which we're going to talk about later in a later chapter. Yeah.
So why do you feel?
That's a good question, but all these cells, when they die, they must stick together. I don't know. That's a good question.
Because
I'm not sure why it
skin,
peels.
like when you regularly scratch, like it peels off. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at my arm right now, it's disgusting.
Just as an example.
Looks like it's
I'll have to look up peeling. I'm not sure why that happens.
Good question.
The skin has what we call hair follicles in the skin. This is a hair, and a hair is basically epidermal cells that have kind of been that multiply down here at the base. This is called the hair root, and these cells are constantly multiplying and pushing the rest of the cells upward. They're bound tightly together, and they form what's called a hair. Each hair has a gland associated with it called an oil gland that squirts oil onto the surface of the hair. And the oil is used to keep the hair from coming apart. Hairs without enough oil will fray at the end. They call them split ends. Yes, probably.
Did you say it was hard to cut?
Wait a second. There's 3 people talking. You can raise your hand like Hogan did and talk. Other than that, please don't. Thank you.
Yeah, say it was hard to cut into the subcutaneous layer.
That would be pretty deep.
But like when you pluck a hair, it's not very deep.
Yeah, it's down there pretty deep.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's just that's like.
Well, I mean, this whole thing is not very deep. I mean, the dermis is only probably a few millimeters thick. Each hair. Oh, by the way, the reason why you get pimples is because these oil glands that squirt out oil, they can get bacteria down there. Bacteria, remember those little organisms we studied? And if they get in this little oil duct, they'll eat the oil and they start multiplying. And then what happens is white blood cells come to the area to fight those bacteria. And whenever white blood cells come in there to fight the bacteria, the whole area swells up. That's a pimple.
Ew.
And at your age, the oil glands are very active and are squirting out a lot of oil, so you tend to get a lot of bacteria down there eating all this oil. The older you get, one thing you have to look forward to, the less active your oil glands become, and the less pimples you'll have. Yes?
You said like pro.
Oh, like pro.
Yeah, like pro.
Unfortunately, there's other bad things about aging, including dying.
Yeah.
I'll never die.
Now, each hair follicle, listen, it's not permission to start talking. Each hair follicle has a muscle connected to it. The muscle can contract and pull the hair so it stands up. And in animals, what that does is it causes the hair on their bodies to stand up and hold in more oxygen. Hold air close to their bodies, and it keeps them warmer. It's like having a thicker coat. So, when we get cold, this muscle, it's called the erector pili muscle, contracts, makes all our hair stand up. That's what goosebumps are. It's meant to help conserve energy and conserve heat, although we don't have really thick enough hair to keep in that air.
Doesn't it make your hair grow faster too?
This muscle? No, I haven't heard that.
If you like,
Sounds like
Question?
sounds like if you got goosebumps, like after you shave your legs, like makes your leg hair grow back a lot faster. Like I hear that.
I don't know anything about that.
That's someone told me.
Yeah, because you gotta shave your legs since you're under model.
No.
He's
a swimmer.
That's really high.
There's
deep enough,
Okay, stop talking. Yes,
if
Leah.
you cut deep enough to break that muscle, will it, once it heals, will the muscle heal back, or will you not be able to like raise?
I don't know.
Oh, I was gonna
Good
ask.
question.
I'll experiment.
Tucker, question.
So is that how you get like pimples on your arm and stuff?
Yeah, you still have hairs on your arms that have sebaceous glands.
Is the face just naturally more oil, or like have more oil glands? than the other? Like,
Yeah, I think they're more active in the
Back
face. Yeah.
Can I go to the bathroom?
Yes.
Wait, so
Yeah.
people who have really bad acne, is that like because their face is just really oily?
That's one reason. There's a lot of other things that cause it. It's having to do with the immune system being active, overactive in some people, and it's not fully understood. But yeah, it could be one thing. It's because they have oily skin.
What about, they said like their hormones or stuff like
Yeah,
that?
that affects it too. Secretion of oil is affected by different hormones. You can see there's a lot of blood vessels and nerves down here in the skin. These nerves help receive signals. There's 4 different types of nerves in the skin. There's nerves that sense cold, nerves that sense heat, nerves that sense touch, and nerves that sense pain. So you got all 4 types of fibers in here: hot, cold, touch, and pain, and they will get those messages and send these electrical signals to the brain so that the brain knows that the skin's touching something that's hot or
Can
that's
you
cold.
kill the pain ones?
Can you kill the pain ones? Yeah, if you were to cut the nerves, that you wouldn't be able to feel anything.
So I need to do.
why?
That's probably not a good thing, though. You need that
It wouldn't like help
nervous
you live
system
longer.
to know if you're doing something that could hurt yourself.
But Pro, are there other nerves in the body? Like
I
if
heard
you got
PCP
shot
kept
and you
passing
had
off.
killed those nerves,
I hope
you'd still feel it when you use the other nerves.
What's that?
You got shot, but you had like inactivated those nerves. What are there other nerves in the body?
Yeah, there's millions of nerves in the body.
Surely.
Hey, bro.
So it only helps you getting
Does
full.
Yes.
does PCP kill those things?
The way drugs work that kill pain is they cause the little, and we're going to study this when we study the nervous system, the little messages, electrical messages that are sent, to have them not sent.
Yeah.
And then it wears off for a while.
Last
Like
time
when
I
I
had PCP, I didn't feel anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Like when I had my wisdom teeth out, they gave me hydrocodone.
12 times you didn't feel
Okay, Bennett, stop. Raise your hand if you want to say something.
I wasn't talking to you though, I was talking to him.
Could you not talk to him so
Yeah,
I can
I'll
hear the
try.
person who's asking the question?
When I had my wisdom teeth out, they gave me hydrocodone, and I couldn't feel. I don't remember anything.
Yeah, we'll study the way drugs work later when we do the nervous system.
Sure.
Video.
Now,
Video one.
still trying to get through this. One of the things the skin does is it helps regulate your temperature. Going back to take a look at this. If the skin senses that it's cold, it will do some things to keep your body from, your blood from getting too cold. Your blood has to stay at 98.6. Go pay attention here because I'm going to show you a video on it. You're going to have to understand this. If the blood temperature gets too cold, because it's cold outside, and all these blood vessels have little tiny muscles around them that they're not showing here, that can pinch off the blood vessels so that blood does not go to your skin, so that the blood is kept down deep. This is how your skin can regulate temperature. If it's real cold out, these blood vessels pinch off, blood quits going to your skin's surface, and blood stays down deep so it won't get cold. If it's real hot, these blood vessels open up and blood goes to your surface of your skin. And so the heat from the blood is real near the surface and the heat can get out, you see. So that's why when it's cold out, your skin kind of appears pale. And when it's hot out or when you're running or something like that, your skin appears red. Yeah.
Why is like, I don't know, my like blotchy? You know what I mean?
I don't know why
You're kind of hot, you're kind of.
Doesn't
That's a
make
joke.
You are.
sense.
Maybe in some places you are.
No, just my legs like are always
Are always blotchy?
almost
They're kind of purple. Are you?
Yeah.
The drugs.
Now, we call this, listen, this temperature regulation, we call it homeostasis, keeping the body temperature the same. One of the things you'll do, if it's hot, is you have special glands. Here's one right here. It's called a sweat gland. And it will take water from the blood, suck in water from the blood, and squirt it onto the surface of the skin. And then that's hot water on the surface of your skin. It will evaporate into the air, and you cool down. So the body has lots of ways of heating and cooling itself. And that's what this is about. Temperature regulation.
After cold weather, our bodies try to keep a constant temperature.
Stop talking.
The graphic image shows where Patrick's skin is losing heat. The red areas are hot, blue and green cooler. His hands are still cool.
Quiet, please.
Patrick's hard-working muscles are generating heat, which threatens to raise his body temperature. In his skin, blood vessels dilate, increasing the blood flow to the surface. The skin must now shed this excess heat. First to respond are his chest, shoulders, and head. The increased blood flow shows up as light patches, where his skin temperature has risen highest. Even his hands are now hot. Sweat, air currents, and radiation all carry unwanted heat away from Patrick's skin. Patrick now bravely plunges into a wind tunnel, where the temperature is below freezing. The heat loss mechanisms in his skin begin to shut down. The light patches marking his hot spots begin to disappear. Blood vessels in his skin contract, and sweat glands dry up. He loses heat quickest from his fingers. Heat sensors in the skin are the key to temperature control, switching the whole complex mechanism on and off like a thermostat. When these sensors feel cold, tiny muscles pull the hairs upright, trapping a warming layer of air next to the skin.
If it gets cold enough, the blood going to your skin, those vessels get completely constricted and you won't have any blood going to your extremities at all. And that's when you lose feeling in your fingers and toes. Same thing will happen in your ears, your nose. And you won't be able to feel any of those organs, because to feel with your fingers you need a blood supply going to the nerves. But all this gets cut off if it's real cold. And if it stays cut off long enough, you get something called frostbite. You may have heard of that. And here's a story about frostbite.
Then what do they call it? Really?
Wait a sec.
From the high-tech labs of Massachusetts to the ancient medical secrets of India.
Turn around, please.
Oh, there's no question in my mind that I was dead in just a matter of a few more minutes. And then I just wouldn't have the strength to get up and go anymore.
This is the story of Dr. Beck Weathers, frostbite victim. In the worst tragedy in the climbing history of Mount Everest, this Dallas, Texas-based pathologist was separated from his party during a ferocious snowstorm. 8 people died. Beck was thought to be one of them.
I spent about 20 hours out in a storm, a lot of it lying face down on the ice. And so I managed to freeze and destroy much of my face.
Weathers' body had been discovered by a rescue party, but his life signs were so faint he was presumed dead and his body abandoned. In what can only be described as a miracle, Dr. Weathers literally rose up from the dead and staggered back to base camp. Climber and physician Dr. Ken Candler did what he could, but frostbite had already turned Beck's hands and face to dead solid ice blocks. Beck was airlifted by helicopter from Everest to a hospital in Nepal. The devastating diagnosis, amputation. During the storm, blood flow to Beck's hands and face had been diverted to protect his vital organs. His face and hands were now completely dead as a result of exposure. The frostbitten areas would fall off. Within a few months, he would be left disfigured and crippled.
I pretty much look like JoJo the dog-faced boy because my nose is black, my cheeks are black. I was frostbitten so severely that all the nerves had been destroyed, and so all of those parts were completely numb.
Back home in Dallas at the Presbyterian Hospital, Dr. Greg Anigan would take up the challenge of salvaging Beck Weathers' hands and face.
His hands were hard as a rock, and it was all dead, and it had mummified, sort of petrified, if you will.
Anigan concurred that the right arm could not be saved and would be amputated mid-forearm. The fingers of the left hand were also lost, but he felt he could create a mitten-like hand that would retain a certain amount of function. But the real dilemma? How to create a new nose. Beck could have opted for a revolutionary prosthetic nose that would snap on and off with surgically embedded fasteners. But Anigan believed a centuries-old surgical procedure could allow Beck to once again have a flesh and blood nose almost indistinguishable from his old nose.
In India, there are ancient writings, and they told about actually carving the soft tissue from the forehead to replace the nose of people whose noses have been cut off as a result of battle.
In a modern variation of the techniques of ancient Indian surgeons, Dr. Anigan would use cartilage from Beck's ear to create this. A three-dimensional nose, complete with nostrils. That nose, implanted in the forehead, would be grown upside down right at Beck's hairline. It would remain here during development for at least a month.
I just trusted him on it. You don't want to try to teach your grandmother how to suck eggs, and I figured this was his business, although it did take you back a bit. I had this vision of my kids taking photographs of me with my nose upside down and singing on the National Choir.
When Dr. Anigan was confident the upside-down nose was ready to be moved, a new surgery was scheduled. First, the nose was cut out and separated from the forehead. After the two forehead halves were pulled together and stitched, the new nose was turned downward. Blood supply from the eyebrow bridge to where the nose was twisted but remained connected would nourish the nose until it became completely grafted to the face. Finally, the nose was stitched into place. The entire surgery took 12.5 hours to complete.
After about 3 weeks of being in place, the nose is just like a graft. It establishes new blood supply from all of the skin to which it's been connected, and this twist is actually divided and cut. So for a time, he was able to scratch his nose and feel as if he was scratching his forehead. Now when he scratches his nose, it feels like he's scratching his nose.
Today, following a 1-month recovery, Beck is back at Medical City Dallas Hospital. He's working a regular schedule as a pathologist once again. But now he has the help of colleagues to do the things he no longer can.
We have a hand-in-glove relationship because once I got bunged up, I obviously became digitally challenged. And so between the two of us, basically she functions as my hands. We managed to do at least one person's work any given day.
Now, 5 years after his ordeal, Dr. Weathers has come to terms with his new life and his new appearance.
I'm sort of gratified by the results. Greg did a heck of a job. Of course, I like to think that since I wasn't that good looking to begin with, you know, maybe the bar wasn't set all that high. Obviously, this is quite a long road to go through with a whole bunch of fairly major chunks of surgery, but you just take them one chop at a time, and you get through it, and you heal up. Sure enough, eventually you get all done with it, and you can go about your life.
That's pretty amazing. That is a good story.
You came out looking like Quasimodo.
Gosh.
Not at the end.
Wow. So the skin helps regulate your body temperature. That was the whole idea.
I
there.
mean, he could have been frozen to the ice.
I'm kidding.
Your skin, listen, almost done. Your skin also helps produce vitamins. Sunlight will shine on your skin, and your skin will produce vitamin D for your body. And so that's important. Your senses, like I said, of touch are in your skin. Your sense of pain, of what's hot and cold. Your skin is good for protection. It will heal wounds quickly. And they go through your book. They talk about how the skin heals. Let's take
Healing the dermis after injury occurs in a series of stages. First, blood flows out of the wound until a clot forms.
That's a bad cut.
A scab soon develops, creating a barrier between bacteria on the skin and underlying tissues. Finally, new skin cells begin repairing the wound from beneath.
Your book goes through and talks about how that works. I want you to read it. I'm not going to get
When it scars, what happens?
the skin doesn't always come back exactly the same. It's a good question. And so it looks a little different. It's called a scar. And finally, cancer. If you ever see something that looks like either of these two pictures on your skin, it could be cancer. Whenever you hear about cancers, they usually have the name oma on the end. Something oma means a cancer. Melanoma is one of those melanocytes that I talked about earlier that do the skin color, and they reproduce out of control. Carcinoma is a different skin cell, one that's doesn't release melanin, reproducing out of control. Melanoma is the dangerous one. This kind can spread all over the body rather quickly and cause death. Carcinomas usually aren't deadly, but sometimes they are. Yeah.
My boyfriend had skin cancer when he was a baby, and now he has scars on his back.
Where it got removed?
Well, and like sunspots and stuff. You know how older people have sunspots? Because, and so now he has to wear like tons of sunscreen. He can't be in the sun too long, like exposed, and so like his whole back, like on his shoulders and stuff where he had it, is all
brutal. So did they cut it off?
Yeah, the sun from not wearing sunscreen.
Yeah. The best way to protect yourself from skin cancer is to wear sunscreen.
My dad's had those. Now he has like, you know those like freckles like this?
Most of your parents, listen,
like all over his back.
People my age and older, they didn't really know about will you let me talk? People my age and older, they didn't really know about how damaging the sun was back then. And so a lot of you people your parents' age and older probably were not putting on sunscreen. At your age, you should know. If you put on sunscreen, not only does it protect you against skin cancer, but it'll also protect your skin against wrinkling. And old people don't like wrinkles. Your skin will stay younger if you protect it from the harmful